other platforms are like storefronts. People like to peruse and watch, but TikTok is an amusement park. It's the one place where brands can be human and connect authentically with fans on there.
Welcome to Made for TikTok Talking Creative, a show featuring inspirational conversations with creative leaders who have mastered the art of producing TikTok content and continue to raise the bar for the advertising industry. I'm Jordan, Creative Agency Partnerships Lead at TikTok, and today we're discussing how creative agency models can adapt to meet the needs of TikTok content creation. Cavell is a visionary creative agency with a focus on developing content for Gen Z and Millennial audiences. They proudly define themselves as the anti-agency. Here to tell us about how Cavell ditched the old school structures and made their own rules is Dalit Saad, co-founder and chief creative officer. Dalit, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jordan.
It's so nice to finally meet you in person. We've done virtual meetings before, but this is the first time that we actually get to be in the same room.
I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yeah, well, I want to talk to you about your career because I'm always curious to know how people got interested in the advertising industry. What motivated you to pursue a creative career in this industry?
It all started with that one teacher in advertising, and he was able to take one look at my work and know that I didn't go far enough. He would rip it up, he would throw it to the floor, and he would just know that I didn't go far enough. But it was that kind of rigor that I went through that eventually something clicked, and I started to love the work that I was doing and was super proud of it. And eventually I found myself in New York City in the Mad Men era of advertising, and I saw a big opportunity to bring the female lens.
Yeah. Were you more focused in copy or art when you were starting?
I was an art director. So actually I started as a graphic designer, but then when I took this one advertising course with this teacher, his name was Roland Young, he was a legend. That's who changed my trajectory. And I took that advertising class, and then from there I became an art director.
Okay, and so you've done art direction at some really iconic advertising agencies before starting Cavell. What motivated you to branch off and do your own thing? Did you always have an entrepreneurial spirit, or was it something that happened in your experience that pushed you into that direction?
That's a really great question. So being Jewish, my family had to flee their countries, and they landed in Mexico City without knowing the language, and they started their businesses from scratch. So I always knew I had that entrepreneur spirit DNA in me that I could tap into if I wanted. But it wasn't until my wedding when I got married to Adam, who's also the co-founder of Cavell, and my brother, who's a very successful entrepreneur. He actually started a tech recruiting company here in New York City that gave an amazing speech. He basically told Adam and I that we would be so dumb if we didn't join creative forces and start a venture together. So after we got married, we quit our jobs and started Cavell.
Lovely. And your partner was also previously at advertising agencies as well?
Yes. Adam was a copywriter in advertising agencies. We actually met in the street in New York City and landed up working at the same place, which is the universe aligning its stars for us to get married.
Honestly, that's like the perfect partnership, because if you're outside of the advertising industry, you might not realize that art and copy is kind of like a dynamic duo on many projects and creative agencies. So it's nice that you all have that balance in creating Cavell. What influenced your decision to create a creative agency that focused on social content versus, a traditional agency?
There were a lot of traditional agencies doing killer work at the time, but Adam and I, who's also the co-founder, found ourselves dumbfounded at how traditional agencies couldn't get social media and how to create social first content. For example, we would see print ads being repurposed for social, or we see another example seeing TV spots being cut down for social, and we all know you can't take traditional media and shove it into social media. That's not the way that it works. Another example is we are seeing the same creator circulated for multiple brands. So we knew this was such a big opportunity to create a social first agency that was hyper focused on helping brands build their fandom on social.
I'm really curious, how much time do you spend on TikTok in a given week?
Oh my God, Jordan, I spend way too much time on TikTok. And the reason I spend so much time on TikTok is because TikTok is a medium of the future. It is the everything platform. And the reason that it's the everything platform is because it's democratized creativity and visibility like no other platform is doing. And it has raised the creative standard of creativity to a whole new level that nobody else is doing right now.
Yeah. So are you going on to TikTok to find, that next generation of talent? Are you going there to just see what creativity looks like for these younger audiences, or are you going there for entertainment purposes, or both?
I'm going there for everything. I'm not just going there personally to consume content, but I'm also going there to get inspired, to find new creators, to see what people are doing, to learn about the new health hack or how to be more mindful. Like, it is just such a wealth of knowledge. And because everything's so engaging, it's just so revolutionary in the way that it like presents content that people just can't stop going there. And personally, I can't either. I have personal accounts and I have business accounts where I'm able to filter through content, but it is such an engaging platform.
What's on your For You page right now?
Oh my God, too many things. I reset it every week actually, just to get fresh content, but I will get anything from like self-care, parenting hacks, like cool creators, mindfulness, how to live a slower life. Like, I don't know, every time is different, but I do like resetting it in order to get that fresh perspective and see what other people are doing, because you can get so much in your own little niche. And I always like to broaden up and see what else is out there.
Yeah, it sounds like you're getting a lot of content that's really great for entrepreneurs who have a lot going on, such as yourself, because you're doing a lot of great work with Cavell. And so I want to talk a little bit about anti-agency. So that was one of the things that stuck out to me when I looked at you all's website. And I'm just curious, in your words, what's the key differentiators between Cavell and other agencies that you maybe have experience with in the past?
So we mine for social gold better than anyone else. And why is, first and foremost, we dig deeper. So at Cavell, we have a very bespoke process, which is called the Brain Trust. And the Brain Trust is a group of experts that mine for social trends and insights on TikTok. And so they dive deeper. They are able to unsurface things that nobody else is able to surface. And then secondly, we have an entire department that's dedicated to creator searches, manual searches. Like the lazy way would be to like pulling a list or tapping into a platform, but we have a dedicated department that is always looking to resurface and surface new and fresh creators. And then secondly, we move faster. We produce content at the speed of TikTok. And so we've been able to produce content in that way because our process allows us to do that. And then lastly, we're effective. So the combination of having the Brain Trust that is able to mine for insights and having social native creators execute content in a social native way allows us to move at the speed of culture and create content that is not those typical scrollable ads that people are like, oh, that's an ad, swipe. They actually want to engage and consume it and like it and share it, hopefully.
Yeah. When you talk about the Brain Trust, when are you bringing that group of people into the process? Are they kind of an ongoing group that's always coming up with insights that you just have an arsenal of insights that you can just activate for any brand that's looking to launch a new piece of content? Or are they very campaign or content project specific?
So the Brain Trust is bespoke for every single client and every single brief. So the Brain Trust is comprised of experts on the audience, platform, and product. So they're able to mine for insights based on those three different things. So for example, if Adobe comes to us and says, hey, we want to create a campaign that targets Gen Z content creators on TikTok. So what we do is we'll mine a group of 3 to 10 people that are Gen Zers who are content creators, photographers, lifestyle vloggers, in different niches of TikTok. And we brief them and we say like, hey, what are insights that you're seeing on your For You page? What are insights that you are seeing in the photography space? What are insights that you're seeing in the content creation space? And so then we take all those insights and then from there, we strategically and creatively develop those into social strategies. We develop those into campaigns. We develop those into one-off activations or evergreen content. But it's those key insights that allows us to create content that actually lands and resonates with the audience.
Yeah, you mentioned Adobe, and Adobe's content for a long time looked like a very specific way to me on different platforms. And then when I saw Adobe content on TikTok, it's noticeably different. So when we're talking about the strategic and the creative approach, I'm noticing a bit more of a lo-fi production level for it. It feels a bit more accessible. It feels a bit more authentic. To your point, it's not content that I feel like I need to automatically scroll because I feel like I'm being sold something. I feel like I'm looking at a piece of content that was created by a creator. What's the creative process of making that content feel like that, and why go that route?
The reason why it looks like that is because, well, first and foremost, we have incredible clients at Adobe. Adobe is a very creative brand with really smart clients, and they know they need to make the work that much creative in order for people to consume it. But secondly, it's our process. And as I briefly touched on before, other agencies, for example, what they will do is when you get a brief, it's typically given to the agency of who's ever on staff.
Yeah.
But we have the brain trust. So the brain trust is able to identify those trends in real time and be able to identify maybe the aesthetics or the style of that particular platform in order to make it native.
Yeah.
And then, so once we get those insights from the brain trust, our team takes those in and we develop the concepts around those. But the key differentiator there is once the concepts are locked in, typically other agencies, what they do is they produce it in-house, right? So that's why the content feels a little bit more stiff, a little bit like an ad, maybe not social native, because they're limited to their in-house production. But at Cavell, we produce things in hand with social native content creators. We have in-house production where we work in partnership with creators, and they're the ones executing it. That's why it looks more lo-fi. That's why it looks more social.
Yeah.
And when we brief creators, it's super important to give them a great playground to be in that not just follows the brief, but gives them enough space to be themselves and be authentic to who they are. And that's when you see really great work happen, because my favorite part is when we create work for Adobe or any other brand, and in the comments it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize this was an ad until the end. They caught me. This is what everybody should be doing on social right now.
Yeah.
And so that's when you know that it's been successful, that you're able to like land on something really cool that people want to see, but then execute it with like the creators that are making those really cool things on TikTok.
You mentioned you have a pretty manual process for finding creators. Did I understand that correctly? Like
Yes.
there's someone that does manual searches to try to find creators that they feel like would fit in with a specific brief or client. How are you working with these creators on that specific brief? And are those often extended to more like long-standing relationships across multiple brands?
Yeah, so we mine for social good better than anybody else. And it's because of that reason. It's because we have an entire department that's dedicated to those manual searches, but there's no easy way to finding great creators. Like I mentioned before, it would be easy to like pull up a list or go to the platforms, but you have to have a really good eye for it in order to identify those great creators. And that's why we identify the best people. But there's different ways of working with creators. So we work in creators in different ways. One way could be that we can contract them for a period of time to be able to create content with us for a specific brand. But there's also one-offs where we do kind of like influencer work where they're trying to like promote a specific product for a campaign.
Yeah. When brands, not just specifically to Adobe, but let's just say your entire roster, when they're coming to Cavell and they want to work with Cavell, are these clients ready for TikTok? Or is there a bit of selling and positioning of the opportunity that you all have to do to like sell them on the opportunity there?
We love showing brands the full power of TikTok. And the reason for this is because TikTok is the platform of the future. The way we see it is TikTok is the everything app and will become the everything app. And the reason for this, as mentioned before, it's democratized creativity and visibility the way that no other platform is doing because it is the most engaging platform. The analogy we like to give to clients when they come to us is all the other platforms are like storefronts. People like to peruse and watch, but TikTok is an amusement park. It's the one place where brands can be human. They can be themselves. They could be fun. They could be irreverent. They could be whatever tone they want to be and connect authentically with fans on there. And the best part about the process about onboarding brands onto TikTok when they don't know about it or potentially they do have an understanding of it, but it might be very superficial, is when we start showing them the data. We start showing them how their brand is already being talked about on the platform. And if their brand's not on there, their competitors are being spoken about on there. And if it's not a product that's out there, the vertical, the niche is already on there.
Yeah.
So when we start showing them those insights, that's when something clicks for them. They're like, oh my God, we have to hop on. How do we do it?
Yeah.
And that's when Cavell comes in and we show them how to join the conversation in a way that they can tap into that fandom that already exists.
Okay, so you're doing a great job of letting your brands know what the opportunity is and making sure that they feel confident with the ideas that you all are moving forward with. How about internally at Cavell? How are you making sure that the creative teams are staying up to date? Because TikTok changes all the time, right?
Oh my
We're
God.
a growing
Yes.
platform and there's new features and tools. How are you making sure that the creative teams are up to date with the latest?
So first and foremost, this is an entire team process. Weekly, we have our strategy team that gives us any kind of app or platform updates. Then we have a Slack channel called Cool Creators, where everybody in the entire agency, because we all know we scroll every single day, they put in all the cool creators that they're finding. The cool creators come from everywhere. It's not just like one person or one department. We all know this. And then we have something really fun called Trend Happy Hour. It's an hour that's blocked every single day on everyone's calendar, where they can go on TikTok and just scroll for trends. And those trends get filtered out to our creative team to get inspired. And then one other thing that we do at Cavell to keep the team inspired is we have actually an internal brain trust at Cavell. So understanding all the brands that we work with, we have experts on TikTok in different niches and verticals and expertise that just populate our like Airtable with trends. And those trends are given to the creative team and they go there as a resource for inspiration. So anytime they're working on a campaign or anytime they're working on trying to get a piece of content out, they can just go into the trends and see if something sparks inspiration or if a creator comes to mind that they want to work with. So those are a couple of things that we do at Cavell to keep everybody on their toes.
Just light work. I love
just a little light work here and there.
I love the trends roundup. We also internally on my team, we have a bunch of different threads where we share different TikToks that we're enjoying, different things in the press that we're seeing. And so love that that's happening at Cavell as well. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
Stuck in a creative rut? Brainstorm running out of lightning? Need some inspiration? TikTok is home to some of the most creative and entertaining content on the internet. And that goes for brands that advertise with us too. It can feel like a big challenge to create marketing that stands out on the platform, but don't worry, we got you covered. Creative Center is made to inspire you to create effective TikToks. It's got a dashboard of top ads, so you can see what's popular on the platform, and you can even filter content by regions to get that local flavor and see what's trending. Need help getting started with a script for your next TikTok? No problem. We've got a new script generator tool that gives you a script in seconds. And you need music in your TikTok. So there's a commercial music library with tons of songs that are free to use. That's right, free to use. Creative Center also has all of these other great features. We just can't talk about them in 60 seconds. Getting creative has never been easier. You can get started with TikTok Creative Center today. Free.
A question that my team receives often from creative agencies is how we are supposed to create a difference between the way paid content looks versus organic content on the platform. With regards to Cavell, how does that creative process differ?
The creative process doesn't differ. It's exactly the same. And that's why our content outperforms every time.
Yeah, and so your paid content, it feels exactly the same. Are you sometimes foregoing, a hard sell at the end of a piece of content when you're creating content in organic versus paid?
The reason why we're so successful is because we do not create scrollable ads. Everybody is able to identify those on social. They become so good at knowing what is a hard sell. So if you make content that's engaging and that connects with the consumer and integrates a product seamlessly into the content, that's when you create social gold.
Cavell's responsible for the entire feeds of these brands. So organic and paid. That's a lot of content. I think that sometimes there's this thought of like, how am I going to produce all of this content? And you specifically, how many people are currently working at Cavell?
We have around 25 right now.
How are you able to produce so much content with, such a small, nimble workforce for, a lot of brands?
I will say three things. Process.
Okay.
So we've been able to build a process around the speed in which we work in that supports not only the speed, fosters creativity, but also allows us to react quickly to things that we're seeing. For example, if a trend comes in, because we built this process and have it in place, we're able to like tap into the creative crew, which I mentioned before, which is a pre-vetted group of creators that are able to execute at a moment's notice. And so that kind of process allows us to be topical and produce content at that speed of TikTok.
Yeah, well, when you say speed and trends in the same sentence, my ears immediately perk up, because sometimes trends do require a bit of work through with business affairs and legal, making sure that that's all cleared away. How are you making sure that you're able to activate on trends while they're happening and you don't miss the party by, a long legal process?
We have a great relationship with the legal affairs, but we have always also trained our creative team to know what they can and cannot do.
Okay.
Like, for example, you cannot use a song that's out there that's very popular or intellectual IP. So what our team does is they know how to do workarounds where you're still able to tap into that Barbie trend or whatever trend you're seeing on there, be top of mind, but not go through the legal where you're not able to put something out into the world.
Yeah.
Because the second you're creating content that puts you up against all the legal battles, by the time you get it out, it's going to be too late.
Yeah, it's too late. What about the client relationship? So sometimes, it can be a barrier to release a piece of content if you feel like there's a long review process with the brand partner. How are you working so quickly with brands to be able to put this content out on time, ahead of trends and on trend?
Yeah, so it just goes back to our process. Anytime we work with a client, we onboard them to our process. It's like, this is how it works. This is the structure. We work with the brain trust, then we have the creator crew. We put everything onto a platform. They're able to review it. So we're able to do that onboarding process with the client, and they understand what it takes in order to get that work out the door and for them to be successful.
I love that. So you set the expectation early on at the onset that we need to be snappy with this. We can't wait around, because then the content is stale.
And we will always let them know, like, if they're taking too long, we'll let them know that it's not worth getting it out the door. But what we do is mark every piece of content as like hot, super hot, trending hot, like, let's get this out the door. So the client has that visibility and is able to react with that type of process. So we have a process for super hot trending work, and then evergreen work, and then like campaign work, which is longer. So there's different processes for the different types of workflows that we have. And the client, like, again, we manage that expectation up front so they know what they need to do in order to get it out the door on time.
Right. We talked about the role of content creators a little bit earlier in the interview. You mentioned that at times they're brought in from a production perspective, other times they're brought in from a platform fluency perspective. What is the role of creators in the overall creative process?
Okay, so creators are part of our creative process. As I mentioned before, there's no easy way to finding great creators. We have an incredible department that manually searches for them. And so in terms of the creative process, to create evergreen content, we have our creator crew. And our creator crew is the pre-vetted group of creators that are bespoke for that specific brand. And they've been pre-vetted by the client, they've been approved, we've seen their kind of work that they're doing. And so we're able to contract them, let's say for a quarter's worth of work, to be able to execute content at a moment's notice. So that's why when the hot trend comes in, we tap like this person on the creator crew, this person be great, they do great original sound, or this person does really great illustration, let's tap them for that type of execution.
Right.
And that's what we call white label creators, where they create work on behalf of the brand. And then we have the other side of the creator verse, which is what we call influencers. And influencers are the ones that are creating work, but also posting it on their account. And so we have net new searches for them every single time for every single campaign. And we don't resurface the same people across brands, because that's what most people do, and that's a lazy way of doing things. Here we try to discover just really fresh talent, because it's so beautiful to see when you uncover like an underdog and then you bring them out into the brand, and then you start seeing them everywhere. And a lot of that happens here at Cavell. You'll see we've surfaced a lot of people, then later on a lot of brands kind of pick up and start tapping them for other projects.
I love that. I mean, creators are such a huge part of the platform, right?
They're everything.
They're everything, literally. And when you look at the piece of content, you want to feel like that person is talking to their audience, and it doesn't feel like they're just regurgitating brand messaging.
Yeah.
Right. So tell me about the briefing process when you're working with creators. How much detail are you giving them versus how much creative freedom are you giving them?
So what we love to do at Cavell is create a framework. So what we have is a creator brief. The creator brief will include the creative concept that we sold into the client. We'll have some creative parameters, some like kind of key things that we want them to hit home on. But what we have to do here in order to be successful is give them a playground to be in, to be themselves, to be authentic. The last thing you want to do, which I see a lot of out there, is brands trying to force creators to be actors or to perform on behalf of the brand.
Yeah.
That's when you fail miserably on social. But to be successful on social, you have to you get creators for who they are and what they're good at doing. That's what we ensure to do with every single piece of content, that they're bringing out their personality, they're bringing out their authentic self, and seamlessly integrating the product into that storytelling narrative.
Yeah. How do you deal with clients who potentially look at a piece of TikTok content for review, let's say before you approve it to go out, and maybe they feel like it's a bit too DIY or lo-fi, or it feels a bit more rough than what they would expect to see their brand represented on maybe a television commercial? What is your response to that potential feedback?
Well, first and foremost, people come to us because we're experts, so it really helps that. And
Yeah.
what we come to learn is that they do have a little bit of a superficial understanding of the platform. And so we do a lot of onboarding when they first start to work with us, and we explain to them how to be successful on TikTok. And if you see something on TikTok that looks or smells like an ad, it's going to fail miserably. So we say, like, this kind of content will not perform well on this platform. This kind of content performs better on other platforms or traditional media. And the way for this piece of content to do well and to be shared and to be engaged with, it has to feel real. It has to feel authentic. And so that's how we're able to help the client see what the value of TikTok is and how to create content that helps them thrive on there.
This is a bit of a creative nerd question that I have. It's just sparked in my mind. But when you're editing these pieces of content, are you opting for just mobile editing tools? Are you using, the desktop editing tools that we've become so used to in the advertising industry? What are your thoughts on that post-production process?
So our creators are a post-production process, and that's what makes our work so authentic. So for example, if we see somebody doing a really cool trend with that specific editing style, we will contract those creators who are doing that editing style in that fashion, in order so that when we get the workout, it looks like that, and it doesn't look like it was produced in house or at a studio or at with a director. So we're tapping those creators, and they're using the tools that they use natively to make their work great, and that's how we execute our content.
What I'm hearing you say is don't overthink it.
No.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, don't overproduce it, don't overthink it, don't make it look like an ad.
All right, so my final question is, what advice would you give to brands or creative agencies who are looking to really make an impact on TikTok?
The advice that I'd give to brands and agencies would be to not create content that looks like ads. Every single brand and agency should be looking to achieve that. And because TikTok has democratized creativity and has leveled up the creativity in the way that it has set a new bar for brands and everybody out there. And that's exactly what the industry needs right now.
Thank you so much, Dalit. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much, Dorian. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you in real life.
I know.
I hope
finally.
I get to see you again.
We will. This won't be the last time.
All right. Thank you so much.
Of course. And if you work at a creative agency and you're looking for support on your next TikTok brief, scan the QR code on the screen or tap the link in our description to connect with the Creative Agency Partnerships team. And don't miss out on upcoming episodes of Made for TikTok, Talking Creative. Hit that subscribe button. And I'm Jordan. Thank you for tuning in.